Thank you, Guillaume, for playing this beautiful music. Gracia la vida, my favorite Spanish song. First time I heard this song was from Joan Baez. Joan Baez is an American singer, and I met her during my walk around the world for peace. And so ever since she sang this song has touched my heart. And also so lovely to see that beautiful young girl singing so innocently and so beautifully. You are teachers here. You teach whatever subject you are teaching. If every child from your school comes out singing, you have my full mark for education. Every child should learn to sing. And when you are singing, you are happy. One way to be happy is to sing some songs, whatever language. The second thing to be happy is to learn to dance. So in every school, like yesterday I said every school should have a garden, every school should have a dance lesson. How many of you teach dance in your school? Raise hands. How many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's few, too few. Every school should have children learning to dance. Singing, dancing. Those are two things. 3, poetry. Every school is not about lesson about literature, reading old literature. It's every child learning to write poetry. Everyone should be a poet. And also I want to explain to you that poet does not mean only who can write beautiful words on a page. The word poetry and a poet comes from a Greek language, and the original Greek is poiesis. Poiesis means to make. So a poet is a maker. Anybody who can make something with your own imagination. To be a poet, you have to be imaginative. Imagination. And all of us, every human being, every animal, every tree, every creature is endowed by imagination, gifted with imagination. The universe has given everybody imagination. We are made of 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, and 5th element is non-material, metaphysical, invisible, but everyone has it, is imagination. We have every one of us have imagination. But in our schools, we don't encourage imagination. In our universities, we don't encourage our imagination. In our workplace, in shops, offices, government offices, corporation offices, we don't encourage imagination. We are encouraged to copy somebody else's ideas and follow the rules. Follow the rules. We need to use our imagination. And a poetry comes by learning imagination, learning to cultivate, learning to evolve, learning to arise your imagination. And you, as I said, everybody has it. You don't have to go to a supermarket to buy imagination. And imagination is what great architecture comes from. Imagination is where great art comes from. Imagination is where great gardens come from. Imagination is where great politics comes from. Great religions come from. So, from this conference, from this weekend, all of you teachers, go, teach what you like, mathematics, science, history, geography, whatever you are teaching, fine, no problem. They are all okay. But make sure that you encourage every child in your school to learn to sing. Okay? Promise? And every child to learn to dance. And every child learn to do poetry. Poetry in words, but also anything with imagination. Poetry with a beautiful piece of garden is imagination, poetry. Beautiful kitchen and food cooked on the table and lovingly prepared with imagination, with creativity. That food is poetry. So poetry, yes, learn to use the words and write poetry, but also make something. Teach every child to make something. Be a maker. Our modern industrial consumerist society teaches us, asks us, forces us to become consumers. Now, the job of a teacher is not to turn your students into consumers, but turn them into poets, into makers, into dancers, into singers. And when they go out of your school, and even if they come out of your university, I mean, yesterday when we were having 5 or 6 young people from schools talking, and they say, what will make you happy? And some of them said, I want to have a job. I said, they are miseducated. They are miseducated. You don't want to have a job. You want to have a life. You want to have a life, not a job. When students leave Schumacher College, where I teach, at the end of their year, when they are leaving, I say to them, no, go out in the world, but don't look for a job. Jobs kill our imagination. Create your own job. Create your own work. Form a little cooperative. Form a little group of colleagues together. Work together, 10, 15, 20 people. Form a little, create a shop, a garden, a little business, a bookshop, a restaurant, whatever. The lunch we are going to have yesterday and today is created by a family. I visited their restaurant. They grow that vegetables in their own garden. And they cook lovingly, family business. That's a livelihood. If they were working in a restaurant under a job like McDonald's or Kentucky Chicken or something, they will be just becoming slaves. So our jobs are making us slaves. It's a harsh word, but it's true. Because we are not allowed to use our imagination. And so, don't look for a job. Look for livelihood. Livelihood is different from job. And create your own livelihood together with 5, 10, 50. Don't be too big. Small is beautiful. Don't make too big business. The moment you become 20, 30, 50, 100 people, then you have to have a lot of rules. And everybody has to follow the rules. But if you are a small business, 10 or 15 or 20 people, or maybe 25 people, something like that, small number, so that everybody can talk to each other, everybody can communicate. If there are any rules to be broken, you can break it. You can make new rules. You can be more spontaneous. You can improvise. Great art is always improvised. You don't follow rules. The moment you start to follow rules, you are not using your imagination. You are not an artist. You are not a poet. You are just a slave following the rules. So that is education. Education for life. This is what the title of this conference is. Not education for jobs. And word education is a very beautiful word. It's a Latin word. Educare. If you go back to your etymological dictionary and understand the true meaning of the word education, is to bring out what is already in the child. Child has come with imagination, with compassion, with creativity, with love, with generosity, with all the things that child needs. The seeds are already there. Child is a seed. Like a great oak tree or great banyan tree comes out of a seed. So great Picasso, great Buddha, great Jesus Christ, great Lao Tzu, they come from that baby child. And all those great people use their imagination. Jesus Christ did not go to school. Jesus Christ did not have MA, PhD in compassion and love. The Buddha did not have PhD or MA or BA in compassion. So every child is born with whatever they need to be. Khalil Gibran, a wonderful Lebanese poet from Lebanon, wrote a book called Prophet. And he talks about child. And he says to parents and teachers, but particularly the parents, father and mother, he says, children come through you, not from you. Children are life's longing for itself. Give them your love, but not your thoughts. Give them your love, but not your thoughts. They have their own destination. Each and every child comes in this world with their own destination. Trust the destination. Trust them. Every child is a potential Buddha. Every child is a potential Jesus. Every child is a potential St. Francis. Every child is potential Mother Teresa. A potential Picasso. A potential Van Gogh. A potential Beethoven and Bach. But we suppress their imagination. And we think this child knows nothing. This child is stupid, ignorant. It's like an empty basket. And we keep putting rubbish in this basket. And so, child is not a basket to be put information or knowledge in it. Child is to be helped to grow and find his or her own meaning of life. And teachers are like gardeners. A gardener plants the seed, looks after it, makes sure that it has a bit of water, make sure it has a bit of compost, make sure that it has a bit of barrier so that the sheep or goat or some cow or some donkey in your place don't come and eat it. So you teachers are gardeners. Consider yourself as a teacher. I'm a gardener. And child is a flower, the seed, and it will become flower. It will become fruit. It will blossom under my care. I will compost. I'll water. I'll give a bit of sunshine. I will look after it. But let it grow as it is. Don't try to turn khaki into apple. Don't try to turn olives into almonds. Let the almond be almond. Let olive be olive. Let khaki be khaki. Let apple be apple. Let each child be who they are, what they are. Let them be. Why we have to tell a child that you all have to be engineers, you all have to be doctors, you all have to be accountants, you all have to be this, all you have to be that, because our market needs you. We market needs doctors or engineers or accountants. Children are not for the market. They are not for the jobs and they are not for the market. Market is for the children. Let the market work to support and help and allow child to become himself, herself. That is the work of a teacher. So you are the gardeners. Take this word with you from this conference. I'm a gardener of my children. I'll allow my children to grow and become flowers and become fruit and flourish as they are, who they are. I want to support them. I don't want to tell them what to be. Let them be who they are. Children learn by themselves. Like my son Mukti said to me this morning. He said, when I was growing up, you never told me anything. Only you told me when I asked you something, a question. So let the children ask you questions. And then you can help them with answers. And even say to them, well, my answer is only one answer. There are many, many answers. And you have to find your own answer in the end. But you can help them a little bit. A teacher is there, has to be very humble. Teacher is there in humility to revere the child. Child is a little Buddha, a little Jesus, a little Picasso, a little Beethoven, a little Bach, little St. Francis, little Mother Teresa, little Bangari Mathai, little Vandana Shiva. Little these great beings have come from that child. So have that great love for the child and teach them only as a gardener and not as somebody who can genetically engineers. At the moment, children are being genetically engineered in our schools and universities. They are molded, they are manipulated to fit the market. Humans have become the instrument of the economy. Economy should be for people, not people for the economy. The other way around. So, children know who they are. Let them be who they are. And then, secondly, not before they go to school for 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, even later, the parents are also the gardeners. As father, and you saw my son and me yesterday, and my daughter who lives near Barcelona, in Sitges, I felt that with my children, that I have something, I should be there, always available, because the parents are also teachers. Teachers are not only in the schools, and 2 parents for 1 child at a time until they grow 4 or 5 years old, then you have a second child. So 2 teachers per child. What a beautiful system of nature. What a beautiful organization and arrangement. Nature never says, oh, it's too expensive to have 2 parents for 1 child. Too expensive. And in the schools we say, oh, it's too expensive to have only 10 children in a class or 20 children in a class. We have to have 30 children in a class. So we need to have parents as teachers and parents as gardeners, taking care of our children. It's very important because parents should not think that all the responsibility is in the school. We have no responsibility. Every father, every mother, 2 teachers for 1 child. That's a wonderful, wonderful system of the universe. And then, of course, nature is our teacher. We learn so much from nature. I learn all the time. My mother, when I was little boy of 4 years old, 5 years old, she will take me, hold my finger like this in her hand and say, let's go for a walk. We'll walk to our farm. Let's not go on a horseback. Let's not go on a bullock cart. We had no cars in those days. There was no electricity, no telephone, Never mind smartphone, not even electricity, not even landline. There was nothing. But my mother was a great teacher of me. I learned from her more than anybody. If you ask me who is your best teacher, I had met many people. My great teacher, Vinoba, my Jain teacher, Tulsi, my many, many wonderful people I have met. But if you ask me who was your best teacher, I would say my mother. And she will hold my finger and say, walk. Walking, I learned, first and foremost, I learned from my mother that I have 2 legs and I can walk long distances. This is thanks to my mother that I was able to walk around the world for 2.5 years. Because I learned from age 4 or 5. I was walking 2 miles, 3 miles, 4 miles without any problem. And when we were walking, she will tell me about trees and the bees. Particularly, I remember she teaching me about bees. And she said, look at the bees. They are wonderful. Why, mother, they are so wonderful? They sting. I said, no. They pollinate. If there were no bees, there would be no fruit. There would be no mangoes. There would be no apples. There would be no apricots. There would be no oranges. There would be no flowers. Bees pollinate. They bring male, female trees together and they pollinate. Wow, mother, really? That's how I learned about bees. And then mother would say, look, bees go from flower to flower to flower, taking only a little nectar here, a little nectar there, a little nectar there. Never too much. Never, ever a flower has complained that bees have taken too much nectar away. Never. Flowers never complain, because the bees take only a little. Humans, when we take so much. Mining. Oil, coal, iron, steel, take too much. But bees take too little. That's my mother taught me. Ecology of the bees. And then she said, these bees not only take nectar, but they transform that nectar into sweet, delicious, healthy, healing honey. What a wonderful metaphor. She said, how many humans can do that? We take and we turn into rubbish. We take something and turn into plastic or something, rubbish. But bees don't turn anything into rubbish. Bees turn nectar into honey. So humans have that responsibility. We have to learn from the bees. We have to learn from the bees. And transform what we take into something beautiful. My mother used to say 3 words. Whatever you have, it's in my book, Elegant Simplicity. Many of you have bought. You will read it. My mother used to say, everything you make, like honeybee, should have 3 things. First, it should be beautiful. Beauty is the food for the soul. Beauty is the food for imagination. So everything in your house, in your kitchen, in your workplace, in your clothes, in your shoes, they should be beautiful. Make something beautiful. The number 2, beautiful is not enough. You can have just decoration of the beauty. That's not enough. Beautiful should also be useful. Whatever you are wearing, you are using, your pots, your pans, your furniture, your chairs, everything should be useful. Beauty and utility should not be divorced. Beauty and utility should not be separated. And beauty should not be sent into exile and utility somewhere. At the moment, our society is producing so much functional, utilitarian, useful things. Maybe they are useful, but they are not beautiful. Or they are producing beautiful things like work of art, and that we put in the museum. Art has been exiled into museum, art galleries, concert halls, whatever. My mother said art's place is not the museum. Place of art is not the galleries. Place of music is not the concert halls. Place of music and art is your home. Every home should be beautiful and useful. Work of art, everything you make should be work of art. Every home is a gallery. Every home is a museum. That was my mother's idea. Beautiful and useful. And then she had a 3rd word. Everything you make should be also durable, lasting. Like my son said yesterday, that you get something, it's also low carbon. Because my mother did not have idea of low carbon, I must say. Because she was teaching me in 1940s, when I was a young boy. In those days, nobody knew about climate change. There was nothing happening. But my mother would say, even then, climate change or no climate change, things should last. Because there are only limited resources in the world. It's a finite world. And how can you have infinite consumption in a finite world? And so things should last. So I call it my mother's BUD principle, B-U-D. Beautiful, useful, durable. So now when you go home, look at your life. Look at your things. If things are not beautiful, try to get rid of them. And everything you have in the future should be beautiful. And then you should also think, is this useful or only decoration? Decoration is not enough. It should be useful. And then also ask, is it durable? Is it lasting? How long it will last? Fashion changes. Every season you have a new clothes. Every season you have something new. Every year, new smartphone or new something. Things should be made to last. A computer or a smartphone should last for 20 years. Why not? Why you have to change every year? Just you have to go to the Congo and see how resources are being stolen from the Congo to make our smartphones. Therefore, if you are taking those resources from the Congo, take them frugally, carefully, and use those resources for a long time to come. So beautiful, useful, durable. That is the lesson I learned from my mother. So I say to you, every mother is a teacher. Every father is a teacher. Teacher is not only in the school. Father and mother are also teacher. And nature is our teacher. Like honeybee, my mother taught me, is your teacher. The trees are our teacher. I have 15 apple trees in my garden. And you go to the tree, anybody can go, whether I or anybody else, a poor, a rich, somebody from the prison, anybody go to apple tree. It never asks you, do you have a Visa card? Have you got your wallet? Do you have money? It's free gift. Unconditional love, like Raphael was talking about, unconditional acceptance. Learn from the tree. Tree is our teacher. Tree is our mentor. And so, unconditional giving, that we learn from nature. Nature is our great teacher. One of the wonderful women called Janine Benyus, she wrote a wonderful book called Biomimicry. If you have not come across, please look out for it. And she says how nature works. The design of nature, the intricacy of nature, the complexity of nature, and yet simplicity of nature is something miracle, something amazing, something magical, something magnificent, something majestic, something out of this world. This is why poets are so inspired by nature. The artists are so inspired by nature. The philosophers are inspired by nature. So, child is his and her own teacher. Remember, they have their wisdom. They have the tree inside them. Child's mother and father are also teachers. And then the school teachers are also teachers. I mean, you can be very radical and say you don't need schools and you don't need this and that. But I'm not going that far. I'm saying you are in the school, you are teachers, okay. But just change your attitude, change your values, change your mindset, and just watch the children flourish and become who they are, and give them your support, give them your love, give them your assistance, like a compost, like water, like all that. So this way, we can transform education. And when they come out, if they can sing, they will be happy. If they can dance, they will be happy. If they can write poetry, they will be happy. And then money will come, jobs will come or not come, livelihood is the better. That's how. So this is my view of education. And I think this is nothing too radical. It's not impossible. Every school can do it. I'm not asking to close the schools and don't have any school. I'm not doing that radical. I'm saying within the system, you can change and transformation can be brought about. You don't have to discard the system altogether. It's too difficult for every teacher to say, let's not have any school at all. I mean, that is a very ideal world. I'm a great follower and fan and a reader of Ivan Illich. Ivan Illich wrote a wonderful book called Deschooling Society. And I invited him to give Schumacher a lecture. But at this moment, step by step. So the first step is to change your attitude. Change your outlook about the children. And see children not as an empty basket, but full of potential and full of possibilities. And they have everything they need in themselves. It only needs flourishing, only needs blossoming. So see the child as a complete, total, whole human being, like a tree in the seed. The whole person is in the child. And then secondly, teach, if you are parents, teach your children, love your children, and teach your children yourself. Don't just hope for the school. And then if you are in the school teacher, then also you become a gardener and teacher. And then, of course, learn from nature. So these are the four ideas that I would like you to take away from this conference. And so this is my last talk. And this is my last session, more or less. I have to leave about 1 o'clock, 1:30 today. So I would like to thank Guillaume and all of you for inviting me again and again. And maybe some of the things I'm saying to you, I am repeating. Maybe I spoke these things last year and the year before, I don't know. But anyway, it's good to be reminded. And so even if I have repeated, please forgive me and see these things as if I am reminding you. But thank you very much. It has been my great pleasure to participate in this conference. And may this annual gathering of teachers and parents and radical activists continuously hold these conferences annually, every year. And please support Guillaume in any way you can. Also, Guillaume has to put all the kind of costs of organizing conferences, like paying our travel expenses and so on. So if any of you are able to give some donation to Guillaume's organization, please make some donation and support him and keep coming to this conference every year after year. And it's been my joy and pleasure to be with you. And if I've said anything which is not good, which is not right, please throw it away. Don't listen to me. Only if I have said something which is helpful to you, useful to you, take it away. If there is something not useful, if I'm saying something out of order, something wrong, please don't forgive me. Please forgive me and don't take it with you. But only if I have said something good, please take it with you. And thank you very much. Thank you, 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 thank you. 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 Yeah. Thank you. 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 Okay.
Cuando escuchamos ese tambor, y me gustaba enlazar mi charla con esta...
The virtue in being able to fly, and I would like to refer to this video and say that precisely listening to that drum, it's not the beating of a distant drum, but rather the beating of our heart that is calling us to an extraordinary meeting such as the one that you're having now, which I would have loved to attend, but as you know, it's been impossible for me to attend, and fortunately we have these technological means that allow me to participate, even if it's from a distance. I would like, before beginning my talk, for us to reflect on the idea that what we have just done, which is to everyone come to the same place, the organizers, the speakers, the presenters, as well as the public, it shows a response to that internal drum beat of coming together, of making our unity strong in a collaboration between us that takes us towards our purpose. And I feel very clearly that this response to collaborating is precisely the natural antidote to the evil that we face. I was going to speak, well, I am going to speak during these meetings of holistic education is to non-dual spirituality. That's what I basically invest my life in. Some people may ask, well, what is this non-dual spirituality? What does it belong to? What does it, well, maybe it is more confined to metaphysical, theoretical approach in the world. But precisely given that this is not just a meeting about non-duality, we don't need to go into great depth to see the different methodologies, the millenary issues behind it, to know that this is something true and eternal. We are not going to get into that, but given that this is a brief talk, it's 25 minutes long, I would like to share with you my experience as a mother and as an educator and as someone who's following a path of non-duality. When we talk about non-dual spirituality, it means questioning ourselves, our beings, who we are. Who are we beyond this multiplicity of objects, of sensorial objects that our senses inform us about, those senses that allow us to connect to this external world. Who are we? Who am I? Who is this consciousness that is aware of the world? What is the reality of my being? What am I? To give a response to this question that every human being asks him or herself at some point, it's what we call the perennial wisdom or non-dual spirituality. It is a spirituality that perhaps reminds us of concepts related to religion in the past. It is a set of beliefs, of dogmas that we have to believe because of a principle of authority and that we have to accept as is. But that's not the case here. The non-dual spirituality is about becoming familiar with our roadmap, with a theory that is going to allow us to be in contact with mystery of ourselves, of our beings. And from here on, it provides us with practical means to have our own journey. And this journey ends where all of those ideas that we had been believing through an act of faith, not an absurd faith, but rather the faith that we put into a teacher that we believe in, a faith that becomes certainty once we reach our goal, and all of that theory becomes our own life experience. we should not accept anything as a principle of authority, but rather we should go in the direction in which a teacher that we believe in indicates for us, and then accept it when our own experience corroborates it. There are these texts, the Upanishads, that are non-dual, that are inserted in the oldest spiritual scriptures that people are aware of. And one of the oldest Upanishads is about a father who sends his son to study with the erudites of the period of the time. And this was a custom. These children that were sent to study at this institute, at this academy, received the knowledge, the highest level of knowledge of the time. And they spent years there in receiving that training at this school, at this academy. And in the case that I'm referring to, this son returns after being in this training for years, and his father asks him, have they shown you that in your school that cannot be seen or heard nor known, but that without it nothing can be seen, known, or heard? And when the son listened to this, he was perplexed. He was confused because he had been taught to know the knowledge of the time, the inventory of knowledge, but he had not been aimed in that direction of finding out about his own essence, about his own being. This occurs the same today in our education. Exactly the same thing occurs. We are looking outward. We tend to have our mind and our feelings fascinated with this world. And all of our education processes provide knowledge. It's very significant that children today, we just overload them with activity. They learn how to speak Chinese, to play the violin, to do a sport, to learn fencing, but they don't see the message that is to be learned. What I would like in this short period of time that I have to share with you is to share with you an experience of my life. It's a life experience, because we're not going to get into metaphysical reasoning of the existence of oneself, but we have to see how our dedication to spirituality, to the non-duality, can be totally useful in our daily lives, in our tasks as parents, as educators, as teachers. When I was young, I was someone who I obsessively sought the truth. I was an insatiable seeker of truth. For me, truth was something that could only come to me from science, philosophy, from history. Therefore, without knowing it, I was subscribing to a dualist, materialist paradigm. And my spiritual orientation was of a radical atheism. Now I find it funny because how little I knew of what plans the life had for me with that atheistic belief. That's why I believe that this meeting, this conference, is a great opportunity for me to share my experience with you. What occurred was that during the birth of my first child, during the birth itself, during the delivery, I had an encounter with my true self, the self that I share with all of you. I went from being a person that was totally ignorant of myself, to just coming face to face with it. I went to the hospital to have my son, but I had no idea at that point that I was also going to be born during that delivery, and that everything was going to change from then on for me. Everything changed that day, that night. And what happened at that point? What happened from then on? When I could no longer go back to what I had learned in the past, what I knew to interpret my life. What being awake means is to having the ability to react to our world. And I had that sudden awakening that I was still unaware of, still confused by, and I saw it as my task as a mother, my role as a mother. But if I had been aware of what was going on at that time, it would have been different. I now understand that there was a period of reflection about my own childhood, about what I learned, about how I grew up, about how I was educated. And from that reflection, there was a response that came forward, a response to my son at that moment. I've since then had two other children, but it wasn't influenced by the past. It was capable that I could do directly before me. So then I was able to realize that I had learned a concept of education that I think is very common. It's a concept of education, an educational paradigm that supposes that the child is incomplete and imperfect reality, a reality that needs to be modified, improved, as if we use the metaphor of a tree. A tree needs to be pruned and taken care of. And we are in a society that is extremely sick, where we are led to compete and to race against each other. And it doesn't matter how many bodies we leave behind us as we head for our goal of being the best or the first. For me, it was clear that that paradigm just didn't work, that it wasn't responding to what life was asking of me. One of the names that I love to give to this non-dual awakening, to this non-dual discovering, to our non-dual essence is love. And love has an infinite understanding. It knows how to see what is being asked for, what responses are required. And I was in, as I observed that in that state of awareness, I was able to see that not only my son, but also I was being born, and everyone that I came across, it didn't matter the age or the position of that person, we were all asking for one thing. We were shouting it, sometimes in desperation. We were asking to be seen as valuable individuals, as valuable people. We were asking to be loved. And I was able to see that my son was asking for that. The only way to truly face this experience of life in a world which is often hostile, a world that is difficult, where we have to learn through a very grueling process in the most intelligent and happy way, to have that life experience, to be educated, to grow, is being unconditionally loved. So, in my fantasy of motherhood, I thought that I had created a paradigm, a new paradigm, a paradigm whose axiom was the child, in this case my son, is an absolutely valuable reality that is perfect, that is full, complete, and deserving of my total love, unconditional love. And I have been given the gift of being able to accompany this process as it unfolds. And all I need to do in the process is to make sure that I, in my judgment, with my fears, with my emotional blockages, are not going to spoil that progression. I can come before you today and share with you that this experience took place in my life and that I was able to see how the children, how the students that are educated in this paradigm that considers children these perfect beings still to be unfolded. This guaranteed essence, this basic basis, children are deeply grateful, collaborative, kind, responsible with life, with the planet. They are happy because they're free. And they have millions of spontaneous resources to face the difficulties of life. They have creative ways of facing difficulties. They believe in their worth. And this is the generation that can get us out of the situation and the dead end in which we have taken ourselves, that we have driven ourselves, to be kind, to be good, because someone has protected that goodness that was present since they were born. And as I said, this has become a reality for me. This is something that I've been able to carry out. It's something that I've been able to enjoy tremendously. This celebration of love, of my work, of my role as a mother. If we are capable of accepting this paradigm in a universal way, and a successful educational process where this child, this adolescent, this young person will be in contact with his total and absolute worth, with his deservance of love and consideration. If each one of us feels that we become a unique tree that we were destined to become, if that education, the process of education frustrates this, then and if we stop that educational process from frustrating it, then we will be able to continue moving forward and growing for the survival of our planet as we face this planetary crisis. And what I'm sharing with you today, I would say that the deep cause of this, beyond seeing many things in the world, but the deep cause has to do with the ignorance of our being, to understand that we are one single existence. And the other day I saw in a Netflix documentary, a beautiful one, talking about the planet. It's one done by Will Smith and the astronauts that have seen the planet from the space station, men and women that have been scientifically trained, materialistic, but nonetheless, from that perspective of being so far away and seeing our planet in its totality, they were moved, and they had a mystic experience as they looked upon the earth. I would dare to say that children that are educated in this paradigm will know how to respect and to honor the ground that they walk on. But there is a trick. There is something that maybe many of you have already seen. Those that educate, mother, father, teacher, they will not be able to convey this value this worth unless they're able to recognize it in themselves. Because, as is the case of many of us that have dedicated our lives to education, we've seen in thousands of ways that children don't learn from what we tell them. We can have very clear ideas about education and have reasonable ideas, but if we do not support this with the way in which we live, if we don't walk the talk, then the children will learn from our contradictions, from our incongruencies. And often, the father, the mother, the teacher, they are in a process, they're in the midst of a process of recognizing their perfect essence. But at least, I feel, and perhaps this is the most important message, the clearest message, there is no task that's more sacred, there's no more important profession than that of educating, whether it be as a parent or as a teacher. And I would like to extend this responsibility, this commitment, to the commitment that each human being should take on with him or herself, to be fair, to be just to that essence that is a seed and that is growing and becoming something. I would like for all of us to be aware that those that educate have to undergo an internal journey to the essence, or they have to be in the process or desiring to know, to be aware of their perfection. Because it's only when we are positioned in what we can call love that we will be able to share ourselves, that we will be able to extend ourselves, that we will be able to celebrate from there, and that therefore all of us together we will be able to make a much better world, a world that is much more in line with our real nature. This is the central idea, the core idea that I wanted to share with you. I think I was to give 3 talks during this conference, and it's been reduced to this short video, which of course can never substitute my presence there, but I would like to convey to you this reflection, this personal reflection that is from my experience as a mother that is totally seeking to live from my being. It would be my decision, my desire, if in future it would be possible for me to make that journey, to come and see you and to have a personal encounter. And until then, I would like to say goodbye to all of you with great gratitude, and till we meet again. Before presenting Alberto, I have to apologize with people who came and wanted to leave at midday and that wanted to see the videos that we were going to show at 11:30. Our schedule has kind of gone crazy, and I've been improvising as we've been going along. It's 1:30, so we have to stop to go to lunch, but we're going to hear Alberto because he has to leave early as well. So I was hoping to show those videos after Alberto, but I didn't know that it was this late. It's already 1:30. I thought it was 12:30, and so the videos, I think the best thing would be to see them in the afternoon, because at 2 o'clock people will want to go for lunch, I suppose. Or do you want us to see the videos at 2 and for us to have lunch at 2:30?
Vale, entonces, no, vamos a parar a las 2.
Okay, so let's stop at 2 after hearing Alberto's talk. We'll eat, we'll come back at 3:15, and then we will continue with Alberto with questions and the video of the projects in the schools. It will be on the web, but at 4:30 we will show that video here to all of you. And let me introduce Alberto. Why don't you introduce yourself? I'm a strange doctor. I'm a simple neighborhood doctor, community doctor, physician, and if you ask what am I doing here at a meeting of teachers, well, one of the things that patients often mention to me, what they tell me, to go to your office for a visit is like going to a class. So maybe I have a little bit of a vocation of being a teacher. So I hope that this talk will be useful for you. First of all, some words also. Guillem, thank you very much. Thanks to everyone. Thanks for having given me this privilege of being here with you. And I hope that I won't be a waste of time for you, but that you will be able to take advantage. So I want to just thank you all and continue. Let's begin. The idea is that health is our responsibility. It's what we were talking about. The planet is our responsibility. Either we take care of it or it's all going to go to rot. And we live at times of replicants. What can we do to help? How is it important to know our bodies, how it works, and how to take care of it? We have been trained to look from our eyes outward, never from our eyes inward. We've been shown to look, but not to see. And this is very important. Many people look at the planet, but they don't see what is happening on the planet. And these things also happen within our bodies, within our organism. Here we go. Confucius. 500 years before Christ, he said, as it is up, it's down. As it is outside, it's inside. So basically, if we do what it says here, we can live with peace and harmony. This is an intellectia. We are replicant worlds. If you realize our planet, in our planet, 70% of the planet is water, and if you notice, 70% of our body is also water. How many times have you closed your eyes and you have asked yourself, are my cells floating in clean water or in dirty water and rotten water? Now, notice our fish, if they live on a planet that's polluted, the water pollution can have an impact, seems that doesn't want to work. Yeah, it's refusing to change. Something's wrong. Here we go. There we go. It's important to know that we are replicant worlds. And, okay, I'll use this one. What does that mean, a replicant world? Well, we said that 70% of our planet is water, it's salt water, and 70% of our body, and it's also water, and it's also salty. Now, notice this terrible image, this terrible picture. Right now, we're living in a world of plastic. These are things that we know, our birds in the sea, they see something floating and they eat it. Notice what appears inside of them, plastics and lighters and all kinds of objects, and it kills them. Look at this whale. It's impressive. When you see these images, you have to ask yourself, what is it that we're doing? And we're capable of seeing what's outside, but not what's inside. Have you seen these images? We are a society that is dedicated to pollute the planet and not to conserve it, not to preserve it. This is our body. Our body is water. We have water around our cells. We have interstitial plasma, and we have cytoplasm within our cells. We're all water, and we are never told to take care of the water in our bodies. And if we don't take care of the water in our bodies, our cells will get sick. And if we don't take care of the water of the sea, our fish will get ill. the sea is life, but only when it's in the proper conditions. Our plasma is life as long as we live in the adequate conditions. Well, how do we work? We have the blood in our arteries that give us sugars and the fat, and it nourishes our system. If there's residues, there's waste that is produced, and it's acidic in nature. If I breathe, I am going to send oxygen to my blood, and it comes out as CO2. If I receive different types of oils, of fat, we're going to create a fatty acid. And we also produce urine. We're always producing acids, and those acids are corrosive. They're harmful. Our body has to eliminate them. And how is that done? By sending them to the veins, and the veins take them to the lungs. So it's filtered and then in our kidney, and it removes lots of this waste, the fatty acids, and then we have carbonic acid. All of this is easy to understand. The volume, as long as the volume of waste is the same as the volume of what we eject. I generate 3 bags of rubbish and I throw out 3 bags of rubbish, and there's no problem. But the problem is that this is working 24 hours a day, and if no one tells me that I have to clean the filters will get clogged, and we're going to stop eliminating the toxins from our cells. And these cells, instead of living in transparent crystalline water, in Caribbean waters, now they live in fecal waters, in their own excrement. Because why are we talking about excrements? Because this is what we can call cellular excrement. We cannot eliminate it because our drainage is blocked. And this is a progressive process. They never tell us to keep our body clean on the inside or how to do it, but pathologies begin to appear. We get sick, but that's when we're like this. You can see that this is very important, and it is the consequence of a poor elimination of our metabolic waste. So therefore, our bodies need maintenance. It's like in a car. If they tell me if I buy a car, the only thing I have to do for the car not to break down. But we tell people to go to the doctor only when we're already broken down, when there is a problem. We as physicians should be a school of health. And that's what makes me understand perhaps why I've been invited. I am an apprentice of being a teacher, and maybe I'm here to help you understand why we get sick. We get sick for that reason, because we don't clean our body from the inside. How do we do it? With plants, with water, or with diet? Galeno told us this. If you introduce the average age of a Roman, it's 30 years. Now, notice the detail of a simple or humble Roman. But the patricians lived longer because the patricians had baths. They had the Roman baths, the thermal waters. And Galenus said this: the diet, we have to clean our colon, the lifestyle. If you place Galenus, he lived 80 years. He died in 210 after Christ. So it's not just a matter of life, it's living with quality of life, and to understand how these elements are going to impact our life, on our health. One of our great enemies is stress. Either we can learn to control stress, because stress, what it does is accelerate our metabolism, and so we produce more acid. If I breathe more, then I produce more carbonic acid. If I eat more, then I produce more fatty acids. So our objection is to be alkaline, and if we accumulate acid, then we're going to get ill. Our goal is to understand what an alkaline diet is. We can have alkaline diet or an acid diet. What's the difference? Well, if someone comes to me with gout, patient comes to me with gout, and I do an analysis, and I see that the uric acid is high, and I've been told as a doctor that I can give him a pill and that will go down, but I've not been explained as a doctor why that happens. If it wouldn't accumulate in the blood if it were eliminated, and they tell me not to eat red meat or shellfish or seafood because it causes lots of residual uric acid. Well, If you have the gout, you don't eat red meat, and if you're diabetic, you don't eat sugar, or if you have hypertension, you don't eat salt. So diet is important, but what is this about an alkaline diet? I'll talk about that later. But thermal baths, the Roman thermal baths. There was a time in which we began to have baths in our home, and people are now starting to remove that. And they talked about bath salts. They talked to us about them, but they don't explain them. Information without explanation is worthless. Why? What good is it to take a bath in salt water with salts in them? And there are also things that were not taught in medical schools, such as plants that can purify, plants that clean us. What do they clean? Well, they can clean the lung, the kidney, the liver. There are plants that are going to clean our lungs. It's in the book of pharmacy. And it's an expectorant, things like that. Plants that clean our kidneys, and abedul, and plants that clean our livers. There are lots of different plants, and yes, those are remedies from grandma. Yes, but grandma washed the dishes the same way we do today. The same way we do today. The things that are there, it's not just grandmother's remedies. And then we have the controversial homeopathy. Homeopathy was a discovery that was ahead of its time. Hahnemann observed, already translating Hippocrates, that there were illnesses that could be treated with plants that caused the illness. For example, we have plants that are laxatives, and he treated diarrhea with laxatives, with laxative plants, but they were very diluted. He discovered, because Hahnemann was a specialist in toxicology, he was a toxicologist, he studied toxicology, toxic plants, and he was a physician, and he realized that using this principle of that makes you sick can cure you as well, and he began to work with this with very good results. There are plants such as garlic, for example, or onion. And I know that if I chop onions, I'm going to start to cry. My eyes will water. But that what we have in an onion is an irritant. It's similar to an illness, such as a cold. If I'm sneezing and my eyes are watering, my nose is running. Well, if I eat the onion, it stops. And homeopathy and acupuncture was used before the Second World War, but after the Second World War, with the synthesis drugs, this was replaced.
So these are tools to be considered again. Homeopathy, plants, thermal baths, all of this. Our body needs to be clean and orderly. This is key. Vitamins are really important. There was a famous doctor from the British Marine Army, and he realized that if we didn't take raw foods, we would get sick. Like scurvy, for example. If he gave the sailors one lemon a day, they would avoid getting scurvy. And so over time they discovered that there's something in raw food and vegetables, raw food and fruit, vegetables and fruit, that somehow gives life. So vitamin V, life, vita, life. So they need to be raw in order to be living and in order to be true vitamins. Enzymes, they catabolize, they're catabolists, and so we need those as well. Probiotics and prebiotics, knowing what they are, what a symbiotic is. We live in symbiosis with nature, we need to know about it. We host an incredible amount of bacteria who help us to digest and also defend ourselves. So look at this room here. Nice and clean and tidy. Doesn't this remind you of the Diogenes syndrome, where we collect rubbish from the streets and bring it home? Well, that's what we're doing with our organism when when we intoxicate it, we need to avoid acidity. We need to avoid a disorderly diet. Diet is really important, especially as children. We need to educate children into eating in an orderly way. We need to avoid the lack of cleanliness. We need to avoid the lack of order. So when we get sick, we have this problem. So we need to develop a modus operandi. What can we do? We need to change the way that we eat. We need to incorporate habits, for example, of bathing in salty water. We need to clean our colon every change of season. We need to incorporate the use of depurative plants. What's this about colon cleansing? Well, that's what grandmothers used to do. They really used to do that in the past. Fecal substances are sticky. They actually get stuck in our interiors. That's why we have a little brush next to the toilet, because sometimes it gets stuck on the sides and we need to scrub it off. So same thing. If we don't clean our colon, we have a layer of fecal matter that is covering the inside of our colon. Colon has two functions. One is to eliminate the residue from our food, anything that's not providing any nutrition, but also to reabsorb and recuperate the water that we have used to digest food. If we don't recover our waters from our digestion, then we will dehydrate. And so we actually will then deliver dehydrated fecal matter. So the kidney, no, sorry, the liver also needs to be cleansed. Otherwise, we're just sending an infusion of fecal waters to our liver. Then this will give a huge amount of problems. If I have my colon covered with fecal matter, I will have irritable bowel syndrome, all sorts of things. My cholesterol will be high. I'll have fatty liver. I could have all sorts of carcinomas that come because of dirtiness. If we kept our system clean, this would not happen. This is why it's so important to understand the function, the cleaning function of the colon. So using depurative plants, cleansing plants. Do we need to use them always? Yes, because they're going to clean our lungs, our kidney, and our liver. So to have artichokes for your kidney and to have thyme for your lungs, yes. For your whole life, yes. It's like using shampoo the whole life. Don't you do that? I mean, we use our cleansing products for the outside every day, but what, we're not using it for the inside? It's really that simple. It's common sense. And you know what? It doesn't even need to be every day. We don't put the washing machine on every day. We accumulate clothes, and when we've got enough, we do a wash. Same thing. So, we were told not to eat meat on Fridays. And people go, oh, that's the priests who say that. Well, yeah, because the word in Spanish, cura, priest, means curar, to heal. So actually, Latin was invented by Romans. After the Romans, we had the Renaissance. And the priests re-edited the Roman Empire. It worked for 1,000 years, so they decided to copy it. Capital of Rome, or the Roman Empire was in Rome, and now the church has its capital in Rome, and they still speak Latin. So they re-edited that system. And they needed to do something very important. Because we were being invaded by the Vandals and by these and those, and they wanted to kill and rape and destroy and rob, the idea was to go back to the Roman peace, Pax Romana. So that's what was done. And the first thing to do is mens sana in corpore sano. What's mens sana? It's a healthy mind. If I'm thinking of raping and stealing, my mind is not healthy. If I'm thinking of loving and respecting and helping, then my mind is healthy. It's about loving and respecting. That's a healthy mind. There's always three trilogies. So we need the 3 legs. So mens sana, corpore sano, pax romana. Okay, so about food, alkaline food. What is alkaline and what is acid? So a base gives protons and an acid takes protons. So when we cook over 50 degrees, there's no more vitamins, there's no more oxygen. Ah, so is it bad to cook? No, cooking is necessary, but it doesn't mean that we shouldn't know what happens when we cook. So we need to eat raw food and cooked food. Raw food provides oxygen and vitamins. Cooked food doesn't. Cooked food will provide us minerals, fat, trace elements. Notice how fats and minerals and proteins and sugars, we need grams. But in vitamins, we need milligrams. That's why we need to eat and chew well, and our diet needs to be alkaline. All raw food is alkaline, cooked food is not. So, Mediterranean diet. First dish, second dish, dessert. First, a nice salad, raw. Main dish, something cooked. And dessert, fruit, raw again. 2 raw elements, 2 alkalines, and in the middle an acid. There you go. There's the formula. It's that simple. We can go into further detail, but basically that's it. So we need to understand the function of the lung and the liver is depurative. So people used to go, okay, in the olden days when people got swollen, their ankles, for example, the doctor would say, okay, have 3 cups of onion soup a day. And that would allow you to release those liquids, the excess liquids. So we're forgetting the roots of medicine. We're forgetting Confucius. What is outside is within. Let thy food be thy medicine. If the water within me gets polluted, I get sick. If the water in the clouds gets polluted, our fields get polluted, our waterways get polluted. Emissions from businesses, the Kyoto Treaty and all this that we're talking about, reducing emissions. Yes, because if we drink poisoned water, well, we get poisoned. If the fields get poisoned, plants get poisoned, we get poisoned. We need to understand this. We need to start to understand not only outside, but within as well. Our body is important. So we need to eliminate toxins. And the 4 ways to eliminate those toxins are the pillars of a good diet: an alkaline diet, hydrotherapy, natural treatments, and body treatments. So which foods make our body more acidic? Here you have a list. Sugar is one of the worst. It has no vitamins or minerals. It only has carbohydrates, and it stresses the pancreas. Our diets are too sugary. I'm not saying sugar's bad. It's excess sugar that's bad. Meat is very acidic. So is cow's milk that's been refined and all the bread stuffs that have been refined. All of that is acid. So we need to go back to the idea, oh, so if it's bad, if it's acid, it's bad. No, it's bad if we saturate our diet with acids. A diet that I've often seen at schools. The kids get a plate of spaghetti, which is cooked with tomato sauce and a bit of cheese. Then for dessert, then next, they'll get roast chicken with chips. And then for dessert, a little cake. It's all cooked. It's all acid. And people say, oh, these kids I can't deal with them. They've got such an acid character. Yes, because you're giving them acid food, acidic food. So, of course, he's got a bad character. They're growing, they have huge needs. So, it's not about not having the piece of cake, but they must eat fresh vegetables and fresh fruit. Vegetables, so important. Notice how we have a list here: foods, that are going to acidify our body. Things like soft drinks that are gassy, caffeine, alcohol, smoking, medicines are also acidic. If you do it once in a while, it's fine. You can die of two things, of illness or of disgust. So yeah, don't repress yourself so much that you end up disgusted with life. You need to, like a glass of wine or two with dinner is great, but don't have a whole bottle, that's going to be too much. It's all about the amounts and not going excessive. All raw foods, some of them are acid, but the fruits, some of them are acid, but that become alkaline in the body. But so this is not explained in medical school. My daughters also studied medicine, and 40 years later, they were not taught this either. It's really important to know that in food there needs to be everything. Chlorophyll from any plants is hugely alkaline. This is really important. You've heard now about famous smoothies or green juices. What is that? Is when we mix Gershon and the Gershon diet. It's very alkaline. So if I now have a heart condition and I die, have a heart attack, and I die, it's cholesterol that has killed me. Cholesterol is an acid fat. So it was acidity that killed me. And we don't think about that. If my body was able to eliminate it, then I wouldn't have had that accumulation of this fatty acid. So I need to clean my body. If I told you to have a shower once a week, you would think that's not much. Same thing. So notice how any cooked food is acid. And again, it doesn't mean it's bad. We just need to be aware that we need balance. I remember I went through all of the phases. I studied the macrobiotic diet. I also studied the vegan diet. I've studied many diets. And I remember I was at my practice, and a woman who was about 70 came in, and she had a cancer problem. Everything failed, all treatments failed on her, but it was also important to know why is treatment failing? Because, just to show you one image, and then we'll come back to this point. So why do I have a good diagnosis, a good medicine that can treat me, but a bad result? Why? Simple. An image is worth 1,000 words. A patient, when they come sick, they come like this. I give him a medicine or her a medicine, whether it will go through their blood. And the medicine needs to reach the cellular system in order to solve the problem. Now, if the interface is full of what? Of carbonic acid, fatty acids, uric acid, that is no longer moving because they're not being eliminated, then acids are corrosive and that medicine will burn along the way and won't reach its destination. So it's as if you were trying to grow some vegetables in a bunch of amidst a bunch of bushes. What would you get? Well, not a lot. So when people ask me, what do you do? I clean up. I do, and then the hospital is healing. So I clean up people, and the hospital then heals them. We're talking about integrative medicine. The World Health Organization is saying that we need to integrate these concepts into hospital medicine. If things are not working, we need to make them work. It's that simple. So notice how the function of educators is what? To show the way. Quite simple. We need to show the way, and then people can make their own decisions and take their own path. Through training and through information that we have given them, they can then decide. It's not just about training, we need to also inform people. Okay, so let's go back to the point we were at, talking about the things that are alkaline and the things that are acid. And so we're entering this world. Raw vegetables provide oxygen and cooked vegetables do not, which does not mean we shouldn't cook food. So when this lady came with all these problems, I said to her, you need to eat a macrobiotic diet. And she said, what's that? Well, you need to bamboo, tempeh, azuki. And she said, azu what? And I said, azuki. And she said, what's that? And I said, it's like a bean. And she said, this woman really candidly said, and can I just eat the beans from Tolosa, which is the local beans? She said, I'm going to, you don't understand, doctor. I've walked in with one problem and now I'm leaving it with two. I'm gonna have to now try to eat in Chinese. And I thought, oh, she's right. Hippocrates used to say in his wisdom, the maker of this world, as he would say, has put us in a place where one day's walk away, we have everything we need to preserve our health and everything we need to recover our health if we've lost it. Just one day's walk away. So I took a compass and did a circle, and I went, oh my God, Hippocrates established the concept of ecosystem. If you walk basically in a diameter of 100 kilometers around you, you have everything. So I'm in Pamplona, I do this circle, and I said, oh, it goes all the way to San Sebastián, near Zaragoza, and I start to see how I have the thermal waters of Velasco and El Gorriaga, different thermal bath places, a whole bunch of places around in the 100 kilometers around Pamplona. Thermal baths, loads. Then I start looking further and I see all of the vegetables that are grown in Tudela, 70 kilometers away. It turns out within those 100 kilometers is everything. Medicinal plants, the foods, the thermal baths, everything that we need to conserve our health or recover it. So that's when I started to realize that our diet, the Mediterranean diet, is great. It's not that the Chinese diet is bad, but it's 8,000 kilometers away. It's a different ecosystem, different concept. So this woman, when she's saying, can I eat local beans or the local lettuce? Yes. So I need to organize my diet. It's important for this woman because she was saying, this lady was saying, well, you know, when you're sick, your body feels a bit cold. And she would make her vegetable soup, and then her chicken, and then her apple compote. And I said, everything's cooked. Okay, let's change that a little. So we started to introduce green smoothies and that kind of stuff into her diet. This patient started improving enormously with a very simple diet. How can we do an alkaline diet without it getting complicated? It's like how to be a woman and not die in the effort, or how to be a vegetarian. No. Vegetarian diet is, or a healthy diet is 85% vegetarian, 15% meat, which is basically the salad, which is vegetarian, a nice cooked, a nice stew with a little bit of meat in it, and one day a week, don't eat meat or fish. Where do you get the protein from? Pulses. 100 grams of meat will give us 19 grams of protein and 2 milligrams of iron. 100 grams of pulses will give us even more. So when people said, there's an old saying in Spanish that when people go to work, they're going to earn their pulses. Why is that? Because you didn't go and earn your steak, you earned your pulses. Only the rich people would eat lots of meat. Normal people would eat meat now and again. So this is grandmother's diet. Where do we get our food from? How do we combine it? What are the proportions that we need to have? 85% vegetable, 15% animal. Mediterranean diet often has 3 dishes that include at least one that's raw, and have a bit of variety there with the different vegetables because they have different nutrients. Then one day we have fish, another day we have meat, another day we have pulses, and seasonal fruit. So this is the alkaline diet. 2 alkaline dishes, 1 acidic dish. We're balanced. So it's really not complicated. This can be done in schools to educate the kids. I get kids brought to me who are sick, and when I tell them to eat lettuce, well, they only eat pizza and Coca-Cola and Kentucky Fried Chicken and burgers. And I say, yeah, okay, you can still eat that, but you can't live off that. Have some salad, have some fruit. You need that. So this is what we need to do. I sometimes see kids with serious illness, and he says, oh, I can't eat lettuce, I'll die. And I say to them, no, you are dying, my friend. Therefore, that's why you're here. So get with it, you know. You need to eat some vegetables. And when people say, oh, I never eat vegetables, well, that's why you're sick. So get it together. I mean, it's your decision, it's your life. Your treatments have failed. The hospital has sent you to palliative care. You decide, you know, you're going to start eating vegetables or not. Have baths with salt. Have these plants that purify your body, and they pick up again. So therapeutic action. Now that you have been purified, go back to the hospital, get that treatment. But it didn't work. Do it again. And then it does work because the system is now purified. It can now take the medicine. Obviously, it's better to prevent all of this. You need to get aware. You need to look after your body. And if you do, you will enjoy good health. It's this simple. They say that in mathematics, when you get a complicated problem, we need to simplify the equation. What we do in life is complicate our lives rather than making it simple. So our enemies are bad food eating habits, stress, lack of awareness, and our system living in dirty waters. What do we need to do? We need to clean our colon every season, replenish our intestinal flora. We need to have some capsules of thyme and green tea and a number of different nutrients which are there on the screen. Sometimes people don't fancy having teas or infusions, so you can have them in capsules. You need to look after all of those systems, including your emotional system, which is absolutely essential. So you need to come to a deal about health with yourself and establish those challenges. If my cells die, I die. If my cells get sick, I get sick. It's really that simple. So let your food be your medicine. Let your medication be your food. It's best to prevent, stay healthy, and be an example for others. I hope that wasn't too much for you, and this afternoon I'll be ready for your questions.